I met Allison on a rainy afternoon in 2012. I was at a friend's housewarming party, one of those awkward early 30s get-togethers where everyone brings a bottle of wine and pretends to enjoy small talk. I had just come in from the rain, soaked through my hoodie, and ducked into the kitchen to dry off when I saw her standing near the stove, holding a mug of tea like she owned the place. She wasn't loud or showy, just calm, composed. She had this quiet self-assurance that made her stand out without even trying. We ended up talking for most of the night. About books, music, the cities we'd always wanted to visit. She told me she worked in marketing and had recently transferred to Seattle for a new role. I told her I worked in IT and was probably one of the most boring people in the room. She laughed. Not politely, genuinely. It disarmed me. She was smart, funny in a dry way, and surprisingly easy to talk to. That conversation ended with a phone number scribbled on the back of a receipt and a quiet hope I'd see her again. We went on our first real date the following week. A Thai place she picked, tucked into the corner of a street I never would have found on my own. The whole evening felt easy, natural. There was no pressure to impress, no awkward silences. It felt like I'd known her longer than I had. From there, things moved steady. Not rushed, not dragging. Just right. We saw each other more, started spending weekends together, and by the following year, we were living in the same apartment. Allison had a way of creating a home, not just decorating, although she had a knack for that too, but making a space feel lived in. She lit candles at night, always kept fresh fruit in a bowl on the counter, played music while she cooked, which she did a lot better than I could. We had our rhythms. I handled the dishes, she did the laundry. She liked mornings quiet. I respected that. I liked late-night TV. She'd curl up beside me and fall asleep halfway through whatever we were watching. We got married in 2016. Small ceremony, local park, just close friends and family. Nothing over the top, but it felt intimate. Personal. She planned most of it. I was happy to let her take the lead. I just remember watching her walk toward me and thinking, this is it. This is the rest of my life, and I'm lucky to have it. Now we live in a 3-bedroom house outside Seattle. She's still in marketing, working for a firm that seems to keep her pretty busy. I lead a small team in IT for a healthcare company, mostly remote these days. We have a cozy little life. We split chores, make time for date nights, host her sister and niece for dinner when they're in town. On Saturdays, we hit the farmer's market. On Sundays, we sleep in and drink coffee on the back deck if the weather cooperates. We don't have kids, not yet anyway. It's something we've talked about. Some months we lean into it. Other times we decide to enjoy the calm while we have it. There's no pressure, just possibilities. To anyone looking from the outside, we probably seem like a normal, well-functioning couple. And honestly, that's how it's always felt to me too. We built something solid, familiar, a life that works. I think what made life with Allison feel so solid was how much of it was built on small, steady things. It wasn't just about attraction or shared interests. It was how we moved through the world together. Two people with different quirks and habits, but the same desire for something lasting. Some of my favorite memories with her aren't tied to big events. They're in the quiet, unnoticed spaces. A rainy weekend in, curled up watching old movies with takeout containers scattered around us. Long drives with no destination, music low, her bare feet on the dash. That one time the power went out for a few hours, and we lit every candle in the house, played cards by hand, and laughed harder than we had in weeks. That's the kind of love we had, soft, practical, alive in the background. We made time for each other, even when work got busy, even when life got noisy. Friday nights were usually ours. We didn't always go out. Actually, we preferred staying in most of the time, but we made it a point to shut the laptops, put away our phones, and just be together. Sometimes that meant trying a new recipe or finally tackling a puzzle we'd been ignoring. Sometimes it meant sitting on the couch and barely speaking. But it always felt like something we chose, not something we settled into. Allison has always been thoughtful. She remembers birthdays, important meetings, how I take my tea when I'm sick. She's the kind of person who will leave a small note in your bag before a flight or set an alarm early just to see you off. She doesn't say, "I love you" constantly, but when she does, it feels deliberate, like she's placing it exactly where it belongs. Our families get along well, which I've learned is no small thing. Her sister comes by often. They're close, talk nearly every day. My parents adore her. My dad once told me, You found someone steady. That's rare. I believed him. I still do, in a way. At least, I believed in who she was with me. The version of her I knew. Even our disagreements were manageable. We didn't fight dirty. If anything, we were both too measured sometimes. Like we didn't want to rock the boat, even when it needed to be rocked. We'd retreat for a while, come back together with calmer heads, and sort things out. We didn't raise our voices. We listened. We tried. That's what I keep circling back to in my mind. We tried. We built something on purpose. I think that's why I didn't see anything coming. You don't look for cracks when the foundation feels solid. You assume what's worked this long will keep working, as long as you both keep showing up. And I showed up. I was there. I paid attention. I gave everything I had to the life we were making. But sometimes, I guess, even the most stable-looking lives can be hiding fractures you don't notice until it's too late. It started with little things, the kind of changes you could explain away if you wanted to. And for a while, I did. I told myself it was work stress, or seasonal mood swings, or maybe I was just overthinking. But over the past few weeks, something about Allison has started to shift. Quietly, but definitely. Like someone dimming the lights in a room, so slowly you don't notice until you're sitting in the dark. She's been more distracted lately. Not rude. Not distant in an obvious way, just elsewhere. We'll be talking, and I'll catch her staring off, or fidgeting with her phone, not really hearing me. Sometimes I'll ask a question twice before she responds. It's not every moment. It's not constant. But it's enough that I've started keeping track in my head. Little notches of odd behavior that don't line up with how she usually is. Take last Thursday. She said she was going to meet up with a former coworker for dinner, someone I'd heard her mention before, but hadn't seen in years. No problem. I told her to enjoy herself, ordered some takeout for myself, and figured I'd get an early night. She didn't come home until nearly midnight. I wasn't upset, just surprised. She brushed it off. We just lost track of time. I asked where they went, and she gave me the name of a restaurant she never really liked. When I pointed that out, she paused for a second too long before saying, "Well, they picked the place." I didn't want to be rude. Harmless, maybe, but not quite right. She's also been more private with her phone. That's probably the biggest change. We've never been the kind of couple who snoop. I don't know her passcode, and I've never needed to. But now, the phone is always face down. She takes it with her to the bathroom. The other night, I walked into the room and saw her quickly swipe away a message before locking the screen. She smiled at me like nothing happened, but her face looked just a bit too practiced. Like she was working to stay casual. And it's not just that. Our intimacy has dropped off. Not completely, but noticeably. She still hugs me, kisses me goodbye, sits beside me on the couch. But it feels staged. Like she's going through the motions of being close, without actually being close. The warmth that used to come so easily is thinner now. Measured. Almost like she's overcompensating for something I haven't figured out yet. I don't want to be suspicious. I don't want to turn into someone paranoid or possessive. But I'd be lying if I said the thought hasn't crossed my mind. What if something's going on? Not in a dramatic, TV show kind of way. Just something she isn't telling me. Something that explains why her eyes flick away when I talk about our summer plans. Why she lingers in the driveway before coming inside. Why I sometimes wake up in the middle of the night and feel her scrolling through her phone, back turned to me. I haven't asked. I don't want to push her. But I know her, or at least I used to, and something is off. It's the kind of thing you don't talk about right away. You just sit with it. You watch. You wait. And you hope like hell you're wrong. I've always thought of Allison as someone who was easy to read. Not in a shallow way. More like I'd learned the small signs, the shifts in her expression, the way her voice sounded when she was genuinely relaxed versus when she was just being polite. After all these years together, I thought I had a good handle on her moods, her rhythms, the way she moves through her day. But lately, she's been harder to read. Almost like she's keeping a version of herself just out of reach. She's been busy more than usual. That's her word, busy. Late meetings, client dinners, networking events. Things that, on paper, make sense. She works in marketing. Her job is demanding. I've always respected that. But now, the explanations come a little too quickly. Sometimes, before I even ask. It's like she's anticipating suspicion that I haven't even voiced. And that anticipation? It makes me wonder. Last Saturday, she said she was heading to a work event. I didn't think much of it at first. I spent most of the day working on the garage, reorganizing shelves, tossing out old tools I never use. At one point, I found a dusty bin of photos and sat on the concrete floor flipping through old memories of us. Weekend trips, birthdays, pictures we'd taken on the couch with greasy pizza boxes in the background. We looked happy in those photos. Effortless. She came home around 10 p.m. Hair perfect. Lipstick still fresh. I told her she looked amazing, and she smiled in that tight way people do when they're trying to seem relaxed. She said the event went well and that she was exhausted. She went to bed early. No shower. No lingering conversation. Just straight to bed. And I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, asking myself why I suddenly had questions I didn't know how to ask. And then there are the new habits, the ones that weren't there a few months ago. She's been extra conscious about her appearance, even on days when she's supposedly just working from home. Full makeup, styled hair, perfume before lunch. I complimented her on it the other day, half joking, and she just laughed and said, "A girl's allowed to feel pretty sometimes." Of course she is. But there's a different energy in it now. More urgency. More effort. But not for me. She's also been texting more, or, rather, reacting more. You can see it in the quick glances to her phone, the smile she tries to hide, the way she tilts the screen slightly when I walk by. Once, I passed by her office to drop off a glass of water, and she jumped a little, quickly flipping her phone upside down. She acted like nothing happened, thanked me, and went back to her laptop. But that moment stuck with me. I haven't said anything. I still don't want to believe that anything's wrong. But something is different. And it's not the kind of different that time or routine explains away. It's the kind of different that keeps you up at night, running through conversations and gestures, wondering if you missed a clue. If something changed while you weren't looking. Or if, worse, someone else is quietly stepping into the space where you used to be. I don't have proof of anything. I don't even know what I'm trying to prove. But I'm watching now, listening more closely, noticing things I would have brushed off before. And I can't lie. Part of me wishes I hadn't started looking at all. There's a moment you reach, and I think I've arrived there, where the silence between you and the person you love starts to feel louder than anything you've ever said out loud. It's not the fighting or the absence of affection that gets to you. It's the slow, quiet drift. The kind that happens in invisible inches, until you realize you're sitting beside someone who feels like a guest in your home. Allison has been somewhere else, mentally. I don't mean daydreaming. I mean checked out. Detached. She still talks, still moves through our routines, still smiles when appropriate. But there's something vacant in her eyes. I used to be able to read her like a well-worn book. Now, it's like the pages are sealed shut. She says she's tired. Says work is intense right now. But it's more than that. It's not fatigue, it's distance. We went out to dinner 2 nights ago. Just the two of us, something we hadn't done in a while. I picked a place she used to love, quiet, familiar, low lighting, warm food. She was on her phone before the waiter even brought the water. I tried to make conversation. Told her about a project at work I was proud of. She nodded, said, "That's great," and went back to scrolling. The rest of the night was polite. Civil, but it felt like I was sitting across from a stranger who happened to know all my favorite foods. When we got home, she said she was going to bed early. I stayed up, staring at the TV without really watching anything. Around midnight, I passed by the bedroom on my way to the kitchen and saw a strip of light under the door. I stood there, quietly, just listening. I heard her laugh, not loud, but a soft, breathy kind of laugh. A familiar one. It was the sound of her being charmed. The sound of her being known by someone else. I didn't knock. I didn't say a word. I just stood there until the light went dark, then walked away. That's the thing that gets to me, the small sounds. The shift in energy. The way she hides her phone under a pillow now when she steps out of the room. The way she suddenly started wearing that one dress she never liked before. The way she tenses ever so slightly when I ask her about her day, like she's filtering which version to give me. It's subtle, but when you know someone as well as I know Allison, subtle is enough. And yet, I still haven't asked, haven't accused. I've been telling myself that maybe I'm just reacting to stress, to a change in season, to the anxiety that comes from imagining the worst when nothing is actually confirmed. But deep down, I can feel it, like a cold draft creeping through a window you thought was sealed shut. There's something in our home now that wasn't there before. The silence is heavier. The gaps in her attention are longer. And I can't help but wonder. If she's hiding something, what am I still pretending not to see? There's a point where wondering becomes unbearable. When every glance, every smile, every delayed reply feels like a possible answer, or a question you didn't ask. I've spent the last few weeks trapped in my own mind, circling the same doubts, replaying her words, analyzing her movements like some kind of amateur detective in his own marriage. And the worst part is how normal it all looks from the outside. We still talk. We still eat dinner. We still move through the routines of our life like everything's intact. But I know it's not. Or at least, I know something isn't. Allison hasn't confessed anything. She hasn't slipped up, hasn't said the wrong name in her sleep, hasn't left some cliché trail of evidence behind. But emotionally, she's gone. It's not that she doesn't care. She still plays the part. She still asks if I need anything from the store. She still kisses me goodbye in the morning. But it feels transactional now. Like she's maintaining an image instead of engaging with a relationship. I feel like a roommate she's trying not to upset, not a husband she loves. And I've been patient. I've kept my mouth shut. I've tried to reason through it. That maybe she's dealing with something internal. That maybe she's trying to figure herself out. But deep down, I'm haunted by a feeling I can't ignore anymore. There's someone else. Someone she's thinking about when she smiles at her phone. Someone she's dressing for when she leaves the house in perfume at 9 p.m. for a late meeting. Someone who has her attention, and maybe more. I didn't come to the decision lightly. Installing cameras felt like a betrayal of my own values. I've never believed in snooping. I've never felt the need to police my partner. But I also never thought I'd feel this alone, this gaslit by silence. So I did it. Quietly. Carefully. I ordered 2 small security cameras online, disguised as air purifiers, subtle enough to blend into the bedroom and living room without drawing attention. I set them up over the weekend while she was out shopping. The kind of discrete motion-activated systems that upload footage to a private cloud. I told myself it was for peace of mind. That maybe if I saw nothing, if the footage came back clean, I could finally put the thoughts to rest. But even as I pressed the record button, something in my gut clenched. Like I already knew the peace I was hoping for wasn't coming. The first few days were quiet. Nothing out of the ordinary. She worked late a couple nights. Came home tired. We barely talked. She slept facing the wall. I reviewed the footage on mute, heart in my throat, like I was watching a movie I didn't want to finish. But I kept watching. Because now I need to know. No more guessing. No more rationalizing. Just the truth, whatever it is. It was a Thursday afternoon when I finally saw it. I remember the sky was overcast. One of those gray days that presses down on the house, makes everything feel quieter than it should. Allison had texted me in the morning that she'd be working late again, something about a last-minute presentation. I didn't reply right away. I just stared at the message, let the weight of it settle in my chest, and waited until my hands stopped shaking before opening the camera app on my phone. I hadn't checked the footage the night before. Honestly, I was tired of waiting, of wondering, of watching hours of still, empty rooms and hoping they stayed that way. But something in her text felt different. Colder. Too smooth. Like it had been written before she even tapped the screen. So I opened the app, loaded the video from the night before, and sat at the kitchen table as it buffered. At first, it looked like every other clip. The soft light from the hallway spilling across our bedroom. The unmade bed. The door still closed. Then, movement. Around 9:42 p.m., the door opened. She came in, alone at first. I paused the video, stared at her face in that frozen frame. She looked calm, relaxed in a way I hadn't seen in weeks. She set her bag down, took off her shoes, left her phone on the dresser, screen facing up this time. I pressed play again. At 9:47, a man entered the room. Not me. He walked in like he'd been there before. No hesitation. No caution. He didn't look around, didn't ask questions. He just walked in and wrapped his arms around her like they'd done it 100 times. And she leaned into it, smiled in a way I hadn't seen in months. They didn't talk much, just undressed. Slowly, casually, like it was part of the routine. And then they got into my bed. I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I didn't even blink. I just sat there, completely still, watching my marriage come undone in pixels and timestamps. I watched her body, the same one I used to hold in the dark, the same one I knew every line of, moving against someone else's. In the room we painted together. In the sheets I washed last Sunday. There was no guilt in her face. No shame. Just something terrifyingly ordinary. Like it was normal. Like I had never existed. The video ended at 10:39. He left. She showered, came back in a robe, checked her phone, climbed into bed, slept soundly. I stayed at the table for a long time. The footage kept looping silently on the screen in front of me, but I didn't watch it again. I didn't need to. I had seen everything I needed. Not just the act, but the truth underneath it. That whatever bond we once had been broken long before I pressed play. It's strange how something can feel surreal and brutally real at the same time. One part of me was numb. The other was blazing. Not just with anger, but with something deeper. Something hollowed out. Like the foundation of my life had been scooped clean without me noticing. But that numbness didn't last long. It curdled into something sharper. Focused. I wasn't going to fall apart. I wasn't going to beg, or explain, or ask her why. I didn't need her answers anymore. I knew exactly what I was going to do next. I didn't hesitate. The morning after I watched the footage, I got up like it was any other day. I made coffee, fed the cat, took a shower. I didn't say a word to Allison. She was still asleep when I left the house. Hair sprawled on the pillow, same peaceful face she wore after coming home from cheating in the bed we used to share. I looked at her for a long moment, not with sadness, but with finality. Like I was seeing a stranger I once used to know. I walked out without making a sound. I waited until Friday night. She texted me at around 6, saying she was staying late at the office again. I didn't respond. I was already parked around the corner, engine running, hands steady. I waited until I saw them both pull into the driveway. Same guy from the footage. Same easy swagger. He followed her into the house like it was his. That was enough. I gave it 15 minutes. Then I walked to the front door, used my key, and stepped inside. I don't know what I expected. Maybe panic, maybe shouting. But when I opened the bedroom door and saw them, her in a robe, him shirtless, both mid-laugh, the room just froze. Allison's face drained of color. The guy stood up like he was about to say something, and I held up my hand. Calm. Controlled. No screaming. No theatrics. You both need to leave. Now. She tried to speak. Wait. Let me explain, but I cut her off. I didn't yell. I didn't curse. I just said, get out. And something in my voice must have told them I wasn't asking twice, because they didn't argue. He grabbed his shirt. She fumbled with her keys and phone, and within 5 minutes, they were gone. The door shut. I locked it. Changed the locks that same night. Then I did something I never thought I'd do. Allison's sister, Rachel, had always been around. Family dinners, holidays, birthday gifts. She was different from Allison. Quieter. Warmer. And over the years, I'd caught the looks. The ones that lingered a little too long. The way she used to hug me a second longer than necessary. I never acted on it. I was married. Loyal. But in that moment, standing alone in the aftermath of everything Allison destroyed, I made a decision that felt sharp and clean. I called Rachel. She came over that night. Said she was sorry. Said she never liked the way Allison treated me lately. Said more than I expected. I didn't lie to her. I told her everything. About the cameras, the footage, the man. She didn't look shocked. Just sad. And then she kissed me. Not like a sister-in-law. Not like someone offering comfort. Like someone who had waited long enough. It happened. Once. No guilt. No regret. Just the sound of two people burning something to the ground. In the morning, I sent Allison the video. Me and her sister. No words. Just a caption that said, "It's over." She called. I didn't answer. She texted. Begged. Demanded to talk. I blocked her. She tried emailing me. Messaging me from other numbers. Even sent flowers to my office with a handwritten note. I made a mistake. Please talk to me. I didn't. Because the truth is, I wasn't angry anymore. I was done. I used to think starting over had to look like some dramatic transformation. A new city, a new job, some wild pivot into a version of yourself no one recognized. But what I've learned in the weeks since I ended things with Allison is that starting over doesn't always begin with a grand gesture. Sometimes, it begins with something as small as waking up and realizing you're not waiting anymore. Not waiting for answers, or apologies, or the other shoe to drop. Just breathing. I took time off work. Not long, just a week to get my head straight. During that week, I repainted the bedroom. Got rid of the bed. Ordered a new one. Boxed up anything she'd left behind. Clothes, books, old cards. And dropped them off at her sister's place with no note, no message. Rachel didn't ask questions. She just nodded. I think we both understood what that moment meant. It wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about release. The house feels different now. Not lonely, just quieter. I rearranged the living room. Got a new speaker system. Started playing music again, stuff I used to love before we began compromising on playlists. I planted herbs in the backyard. Cooked real meals for myself. Took morning walks with no destination, just to move, just to remind myself that time was still moving forward even when I didn't feel like it. Friends reached out, some who hadn't heard from me in months. I let them back in, told them parts of the story, some details I kept to myself. Not because I was ashamed, but because I didn't want to be the guy who was cheated on forever. I wanted to be more than what happened to me. I still do. And then, one weekend, I met someone. Her name is Claire. We crossed paths at a local bookstore, both reaching for the same novel, laughing at the awkwardness of it. We started talking. It wasn't a spark or fireworks kind of moment, more like a quiet click. Like turning a key you didn't realize fit. She was kind, curious. She didn't pry. She just asked me what I liked to read and offered to buy me a coffee while we waited out the rain. We've seen each other a few times since. Nothing heavy. We talk about music, old travel plans, the weird little rituals we've picked up to keep our sanity. She doesn't know everything about my past, and I don't feel rushed to explain. I'm not looking to fill a void. I'm just getting to know her. And more importantly, I'm getting to know myself again, this time without needing someone else's approval to do it. I still have bad days. Sometimes I wake up and wonder how I missed all the signs. Sometimes I replay moments that now feel fake, trying to understand who she really was. But those moments are fewer now. They don't own me the way they used to. The anger has dulled. The disbelief has passed. What's left is something quieter. Not peace. Not yet, but maybe the beginning of it. She made her choice. Now I'm making mine. It's strange how something that once consumed your every thought can eventually become just background noise. Not gone exactly, just quieter. That's what the betrayal has become to me now, a dull echo in a room I no longer visit. I've stopped checking for messages from her. I've stopped wondering how she's doing, if she regrets it, if she ever looks at the life we built and feels anything close to what I did when it collapsed. That part of my life is closed. She tried to contact me a few more times after I cut her off. Different numbers. A mutual friend. Even her mother, who I always liked, left a voicemail saying Allison was struggling and that I should hear her out. But I didn't respond. Not out of cruelty. Just because I finally understand something I didn't before. Closure isn't something another person gives you. It's something you choose for yourself, and I already had mine. It came the moment I realized I wasn't waiting to feel better anymore. I was already getting better. Claire and I are still seeing each other. Slowly. Intentionally. She knows more about my story now. I told her everything over dinner one night when I realized I wasn't ashamed of any of it. And she didn't look at me with pity. She just listened, held my hand across the table, said she admired how I'd handled it. That meant more than I expected. We're not rushing anything. I'm not building a new relationship out of the rubble of the last one. I'm building it because I'm ready, because for the first time in years, I feel whole on my own. She adds to that. She doesn't patch it. Looking back, I think what hurts the most isn't the act of betrayal itself. It's how easily someone you love can slip into dishonesty without ever looking back. I don't think I'll ever understand how Allison justified it, how she walked through our home with a secret that large lodged in her chest. But I've stopped trying to make sense of it. Sometimes people just break. Quietly. Repeatedly. And you don't see the cracks until the walls come down. But I'm not angry anymore. Not at her. Not at myself. I've stopped rewriting the past in my head. Stopped wondering what I could have done differently. Because the truth is, I showed up. I gave her trust, time, consistency, care. She didn't lose me because I failed to love her. She lost me because she stopped valuing the love I gave. And now? Now I'm building something better. With someone who values presence over performance. With someone who shows up fully. But even if that ended tomorrow, I'd still be okay. Because the best thing I ever did was choose to stop waiting for someone to treat me right and start treating myself like I deserved more. If you're reading this and you're still in the part where everything feels heavy and raw and impossible, I promise, it gets lighter. The silence fades. The hurt dulls. And one day, you'll wake up and realize you're not waiting for them to fix what they broke, because you've already built something stronger without them.